Okay, so I'll just speak Sandhya ji. Radhe Radhe. So
Thank you.
all yours. I'll turn this over to you. Thank you.
Yes. Over to you, Nitin ji. Radhe Radhe, everyone.
Thank you, Prakash ji, for a wonderful session. Radhe Radhe, good morning, good evening, everyone. Hope you're doing great. Having a wonderful start to your day or had a wonderful day. So, welcome to today's edition of Daily Wisdom from Bhagavad Gita. We will continue on our fascinating journey, right? We spoke about faith, we spoke about doubt, and today we will talk about how it ties up into the concept of non-binding karma. That is the next shloka that we're going to take up today. So let's get started. I'm going to share my screen and we will get underway. Hope most, if not all of you are devouring the nectar of Ramayana Katha as well. It's a beautiful Ramayana Katha that is going on at Manara Shiva in India here. So I'm fortunate enough to be part of that. So it's a great discourse and a great environment, here. So let's get started. We'll get started with our opening prayers and then we'll get into the topic of our discussion today. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. All right, so Radhe Radhe, morning, good evening once again. So today we are moving on in our journey to Shloka 4.41. Since we have limited time, we're going to have around 45-50 minute session today. So I'll recite it and then we'll quickly, maybe we can take a couple of hands today and then move forward with the Shloka. Yoga Sanyasta Karmanam Jnana Sanchinna Sanchayam Atmavantam na karmani nibhadnanti dhananjaya. Okay, we can take 3 hands and then we get started.
Radhe Radhe, Shyam ji.
Radhe Radhe. Yoga Sanyast Karmanam Jnana Sanchinna Sanchayam Atmavantam na karmani Nibhagnanti Dhananjaya. Radhe Radhe.
Let's take 2 more hands.
Radhe Radhe, Dinesh ji.
Hi, Dinesh.
Radhe Radhe. Yoga Sanyasta Karmanam Jnana Sanjinna Sansayam Atmavantam na karmani Nibadanti Jananjaya. Radhe
Very
Radhe.
nice. Thank you, Dinesh. Radhe Radhe.
Parna ji, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe, everyone. Yoga Sanyasta Karmanam Jnana Sanjinna Samshayam Atmavantam na karmani Nibhatnanti Dhananjaya. Thank you,
Okay.
Radhe Radhe.
Thank you, Aparna ji. So we can take one more video on. Go ahead, Sandhya. Last one.
योग संन्यस्त कर्माणं ज्ञान संचिन्न संशयम् आत्मवन्तं न कर्माणि निबध्नन्ति धनञ्जय.
Okay, I see Poonam ji for the first time. So go ahead, please. I'll make up for the lost time today. We can go a little extra. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Radhe Radhe. योग संशस्त कर्माणं ज्ञान संचिन्न संशयम् आत्मवन्तं न कर्माणि निबिदन्ति धनञ्जय. Radhe Radhe.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So Riya ji has turned on our video as well for a change. Go ahead, Riya ji, will make an exception. Go ahead, please. And thank you for turning on your video. Is it the first time ever in the history you are turning on your video?
Thank you.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
योगसन्न्यस्तकर्माणं ध्यानसञ्चिन्न संशयम् आत्मवन्तं न कर्माणि निबध्नन्ति धनञ्जय.
Wonderful.
Radhe
Very nice.
Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. Thank you, Riyaji. So let's move on. In this shloka, Lord Krishna is telling Arjun, actions do not bind those who have renounced karma in the fire of yoga, whose doubts have been dispelled by knowledge and who are situated in knowledge of the self. Now, it's interesting that Lord Krishna is referring to Arjun as Dhananjay. Right? Sometimes he refers to him as Kante, sometimes Dhananjay, and sometimes Gudakesh. And same thing Arjun also keeps on doing throughout the narrative, as this dialogue unfolds. Now he's referring to him as Dhananjay because Dhananjay actually means one who is a who's an accumulator of wealth. Right? That one who possesses wealth, Dhananjay. And in this case, he's accumulating knowledge. So it's contextual, right? The shlokas are contextual. It's like you're accumulating, and once you accumulate and you burn, your karmas in the fire of yoga, which is in the fire of basically, it will basically get dispelled with knowledge. So as you keep on accumulating knowledge, you keep on, not only burning your karmas, but also dispelling ignorance around it. And that's why he's being called as Dhananjay, as somebody who's accumulating. So knowledge is wealth as well. So he's referred to as Dhananjay in this one. Now let's move on. We start with our soul soup segment. It's coincidental that we've been talking about a remedy for stress and practicing Karam Yoga. And we said that we need to practice the presence of God as frequently and as much as possible. And when we think about it, we think about God as both our protector as well as our witness. This is what you need to. He's my protector, he's my witness. We need to have firm faith that he's protecting us. We may not understand immediately what's happening, but then the grand plan is unfolding. The beautiful affirmation that we had in the previous session, I mean, if you watch that, there is a grand plan that is unfolding. That is what is happening, right? It's just like your grandmother is knitting a sweater. It will not immediately, and you'll understand, but when you see over a period of time, a beautiful pattern starts emerging. And that is how God works as well. It may not be apparent to us, but he has a grand plan for everybody. So he's both our protector and witness. And he has our best interest in his heart. He's a well-wisher. He's not a vengeant father looking to whack us at every given opportunity. So he's our supreme father who has our best interests in mind. You should have that firm faith. And he said that when we have that kind of a thing, it frees us. That worry, anxiety, all that stuff starts diminishing. The second thing is our attachment to the work. So when we bring in purity of intention, that means we don't look at our works as a means to enjoy ourselves. More than bhog, we start thinking of it as an activity which is done for the pleasure of God. And that is called a pure intention. Anything other than that is not a pure intention. It could be relatively more purer than others. Right? It could be completely for yourself, your self-enjoyment, or it could be something you are doing for a bigger cause, but then your ego still wants to enjoy a little bit of it. Still, it is purer than the previous one, but still impure. Technically speaking, an impure intention or pure intention is only one which is done purely for the pleasure of God, nothing else. Not even a trace of selfishness in that, okay, which is an elevated state, but that is an aspirational state. All the traditions, they talk about love for God, right? So when we do love for God, we'll automatically do things for the pleasure of God, right? And then love is not conditional, that only if this thing happens, then only I will be able to practice that emotion. It is like eternal forgiveness about anything and everything that is happening. Okay, that is what we need to practice with God. So seeing ourselves as servants of God, when we see ourselves servants of God, then whatever we do, it's like, it's not something that you do out of a sense of burden. It's like you want to do it. You feel like doing it because that's essentially what the purpose of universe is as well. Look at the universe. Everything is serving God only. Everything. It's serving. It's giving away. Like trees are giving away air. Earthworms are making soil fertile. honeybees, they are doing the cross pollination. So in nature, rivers, they never seek water for themselves, but only give it back to us, basically. So everything is serving. It's only as humans we start, because we are endowed with that intellect, and then because of our fear, anxiety, insecurities, we start hoarding things and, building all those unnecessary, unholy thoughts, which is, fear, anxiety, and stuff like that. And we also spoke that when we have that purity of intention, seeing ourselves as servants of God, it actually helps develop healthy self-identity. It actually boosts our self-esteem, because now we understand, as part of God, we can achieve anything. We have infinite potential. With His grace, we can achieve anything. So that helps develop a healthy identity as well. Third one I have introduced today, the most important one, it enables non-binding karma as well. Okay, that is what we're going to talk about today. It enables non-binding karma. When we do things with purity of intention, that karma is not binding you anymore. Binding means it's not taking you further into the material world. What the spirituality is a practice of taking your mind away from material consciousness and into the divine consciousness, because we all are seeking happiness, and that is where happiness is. When you do this, when you start practicing this purity of intention, these points, then that karma becomes non-binding, and it actually purifies you. And we know that happiness, peace, joy has a direct relation with the purity of our antakaran. It's a very simple principle. The purer it is, the more happier you will be. And when you do more non-binding karma means now you're no longer taking on the colors of Maya, which could be sattva, rajas, or tamas. So it will automatically result in happier, more peaceful disposition in our day-to-day life. Okay, it's a natural consequence of it, because now you're not doing a binding karma. Why? Because you are doing it for the pleasure of God, and because you are doing it for the pleasure of God, it is purifying you, and because you are getting purified, your happiness, joy, peace quotient will automatically increase. So there's a direct correlation between these. Yes, Lakshmi, you had a good question. I could wait.
Radhe Radhe Lakshmi ji.
Radhe Radhe. You said helps to get a healthy self-identity. So what does that mean?
Healthy self-identity means that you are no longer giving yourself a facade, which can break anytime. Facade means a false projection of yourself. I'm so great, I can do this, that, right? This is how the corporate or world would tell you. This is how you need to build your self-esteem, which is misplaced. But when you think you are a servant of God and He has given you the ability, through His grace, you can achieve impossible. You can become like Him. Then not only you are able to do things, in a proper consciousness, but also it helps you build a healthy self-esteem, not a self-esteem based out of false projection of yourself, but the true understanding of yourself. That is what it means.
Right. Thank
It's a
you.
bit counterintuitive, but this is how it works. Yeah. So if you look at people, like if you look at Swamiji, you don't have to go any farther than looking at Swamiji. Of course, he's humble. He understands he's serving God. But at the same time, he's pretty confident about what he's doing, right? Because he knows that he's doing it as a service to God, and then God can enable us and make us do feats and things which might seem impossible for others. So it actually helps to build a healthier self-esteem, as opposed to what world would tell you. What world would tell you would help you build false ego, and then it can crash anytime. And that is why we feel stressed out. We feel, somebody says anything bad to us. We are not able to tolerate that and all. Those things will go away when you operate like that. So now let's move on to our shloka for the non-binding. So I want you to put your thinking caps on, because we really need to get this into our DNA. Okay, we have spoken about it in Karma Yoga, but I'll employ another lens to it today. And let's think about it and see how this works. So there are three kinds of works. Okay, or activities, I could say, that we do. One that we do with mind. Okay, what does the work? First of all, we operate based on we use our body to do work, right? So our mind gets involved, and our senses get involved as well, right? So one work that you do from mind, And then the senses are involved as well in doing that work, right? Then you have mind and senses. Of course, mind and senses are. So the first kind of work is which you are doing only with your mind. Senses are not at all involved. We all have, we know, the works that we do just sitting when we are contemplating on something or we are planning, plotting something, then our senses are not involved. Only mind is involved, right? And then we have work where your mind is not involved, only senses are involved. We'll talk about it a little bit, okay? And then the third category of work is where both mind and senses are involved. Now, which one of it is a work? The first category, you think it is a work we are doing, where our mind is involved, senses are not? Yes, it is a work. Okay. It is actually considered a work because you are where your mind is. And every thought that you energize is counted as a karma. Okay, it's not like you are doing something and then only it counts as a karma. So let me give you an example. Let's say there are people who are caught by police while plotting a bomb blast in a city. Have they executed that plan yet? They have not. Where have they executed it? Mind. They have not actually carried it out. Now, are they punishable as per the law? Yes, they are. They are punishable as per the law because they are plotting it. So that mind thing, so if they plead innocence that we have not carried it out, why would you implicate us in this? That will not hold water, even in the material world. So judge is going to sentence them for plotting and planning around it, right? So the mind is doing the work, senses have not. Okay. On the other hand, let's say there is a guy who's either miser or doesn't have money. And what he does is all he does sits there is, he sits there and then he starts doing devotion in his mind and he's putting million, billion, the most exotic, the most precious jewel on his Ishtadev every day. Every day is doing that. That person, he or she is doing that. Most exotic jewelry, the flowers and all the beautiful clothes that he always wanted to buy but could not afford to. Or and he continues to do that in the mind. He's actually not carried out that activity. Do you think he'll get credit for that? Same logic, he will. Okay. The mind, what mind does is what counts in the court of law of God. Even in the material world, we try to establish that right? Intention behind any activity. So in the first case, the work is done. Now, on the second one, where mind is not involved, you're just blind, just doing it with your senses. Is it counted as a work? Of course, mind will be somewhere, right? So some work is getting done. But let's say you're doing an activity, but your mind is not there. So that work, if this is considered as a work, can you give some example of it where our mind is not involved, only senses are involved? Anybody who has an example for this? Yes, Tarunji.
It should be something when we are doing it with subconscious mind, means we are too habitual to do that work. So we don't need to put the conscious effort to put in.
Those activities like you don't really have to think, right? You're just brushing and just
Yeah.
doing that stuff. You don't even have to think about it, right? Even otherwise, I'll tell you another example. This is a thing which we have done in every lifetime. Okay. And we do for most part of our devotion as well. What? When we are sitting in puja, like most of the people, they go and do worship in whatever form they do. Let's say you're playing that ghanti and doing that arati. So activity, you're carrying it out with your senses. But your mind is thinking, oh my God, the milk that I have put on the gas, it might be boiling over, or the maid might have come in, or the kid is getting late for the school. So all that is going on in your head. Although the activity that you're doing with your senses is that, right? So in God's books, it does not count as an activity at all. Okay, that work at all. That means zero. nothing. You might have thought you have done a lot of big puja, right? To a third person who's looking at it, it is still a lot of puja, two-time puja and stuff like that. But if your mind was not there, it is zero basically. Okay, I'll tell you the two kind of devotions that happen. So what you do from your senses or body does not count for anything at all. Your feet might be moving around in the temple. Your hands might be moving around, moving an aarti plate. Your lips might be moving around reciting God's name. Your ears might be hearing kirtan, right? You may be even smelling camphor, the beautiful aroma that comes in temple, but if your mind is somewhere else, it counts for nothing. It was just a mechanical drill and nothing more than that. And that is one of the reasons of our undoing across multiple lifetimes. We have done a lot of bhakti, if we call that bhakti. Yes, Sandhya, you wanted to add something?
Actually, there are few comments and questions. Should I read them?
Sure.
So first of all, there was a comment earlier from Ravi ji is regarding insects serving us. So like he was asking if they are not having a free will, and that means they do not have an intention
Yeah,
of
they are not choosing to. The nature is designed in such a way that everybody ends up serving every other, right? Nobody's holding things for themselves, right? Earthworms are not choosing, but this is how the design of the universe is. Everybody is created for a purpose, and so are we. The problem happens, we are given a free will and we choose not to. You see, if we simply go by the design of nature, if God had scripted us and not given us a free will, probably we would also done something like nature only. But then he's giving us an opportunity. But then if he doesn't give us a choice, then we can't learn how to love. We cannot improve, right? So everybody is actually designed in a way that it ends up serving only. When animals die, each part of an animal is utilized as well. Trees, even if it gives us air, then even if you throw a stone at it, it will give you fruit, right? That is the level of service trees are entering. It gives shade to a traveler, and then when it dies, it gives you wood, which you can use to heat yourself up. So in a way, everything in the nature is serving the other thing. And so as humans, we also need to do that. As part of the ecosystem, if we believe we are part of the ecosystem, it's in serving you shall receive. That is the law of this universe. Any tradition you go to, any book that you read, end of the day, it all boils down to develop a prayerful and a loving heart. The day we will learn to love selflessly, the purpose of creation is served. You will get all that is there to be achieved basically from a God standpoint. But as humans, we start hoarding it because of our insecurities, because of our ignorance and stuff like that. So if we develop selfless love, that forgiveness about it, it's like somebody, you just develop that antakaran which can only love, right? It's a very deep concept, of course, but that is the whole idea. And then the purpose of this creation is served already. And the
So,
most unholy thing in this, yeah, just let me finish. So the most unholy thing from a spiritual standpoint is being selfish. But that those degrees of selfishness, they vary, and we have to diminish it over time and continue to become more serving and selfless, because it's in giving one receives. What goes around comes around. So those are spiritual laws. This is how God has designed it. Whatever we want to get it, when we have to give it, we first need to be willing to give it in order for us to even desire to have it. That is how this whole universe is working, right? That quote is there in Hindi, right? Um, बिन मांगे मिले मोती, मांगे मिले ना भीख. यही है इस यूनिवर्स की सबसे बड़ी सीख. So we don't understand. It's a counterintuitive thing, but this is how it works basically. Yes, sorry, go ahead. You wanted to ask or say
yeah,
something?
just clarifying his question a little bit. So he was saying that we agree that we should be grateful for what all we are receiving, but from their perspective, their intent is not to serve. So if that is not the intent, is it still considered service from their end?
See, that is called a bhog yoni. We have spoken about this concept. Anything other than humans is a bhog yoni. So they don't get any credit for that. All I'm trying to give you an analogy is, if you look at the round in the nature, everything ends up serving others only. Right? They don't get any credit for that. It's called a bhog yoni, right? So nothing. Only thing you can do plus minus, plus in your your bank balance is in human birth only. and not in Bhogyoni. It's not like earthworm will be said, okay, Yamaraj will say, now I give you a prize of becoming a human being because you slayed your life for the sake of improving the fertility of the organic soil. Nothing of that sort. Okay, yes.
Himangini ji had a comment that we were talking about thoughts and mind is karma. So she's just saying that Swamiji mentions that our mind creates 60,000 thoughts in a day. So which is mind doing that way?
True. Thought is fine, but every thought, I mean, unless you choose to energize it, does not count as a karma. Nobody can remain without work at any moment. Bhagavad Gita says, right? Na hi jatum tishtati karma krit. Basically, not na hi kashchit kshanamapi. Not even for a second anybody can be without work. But the point is, what do you do with the thoughts? Because our mind can generate anything. It's a factory, and it will generate a lot of, weeds, random thoughts. You will not even be able to know why did I generate that thought. But if you don't choose to surf it, it does not count as a karma. You have a choice. It's not like, oh my God, now I have to think this. It's like if a conker comes in your mouth when you're eating food, a pebble, small pebble comes in your mouth. What do you say? Oh my God, now I have to eat it. You don't say that. You simply take it out and throw it. Similarly, mindful living is every thought that comes to your mind, you're not obligated, oh my God, I have to think it. No, just weed it away and don't energize it. It does not count as a karma at all. Now, that from a concept standpoint here, let's understand your mind is involved, and sometimes only your senses are involved. So if your senses are involved, your mind is not, that does not count as a karma at all. I'll tell you another story. Jagannath Puri Yatra was going on, and there was a painter who was doing a painting. And somebody came and asked him, did the procession go from here? A few minutes back, he said no. While the procession had just went, procession had gone from that place, 5-10 minutes back. Now, did he lie? He did not. Okay. Why? Because he was so busy and engrossed in his painting that his mind did not register it at all. So from that activity standpoint, his mind was not there. Although his senses were there, he heard it, but it never got registered. It happens in us as well, right? When our mind is somewhere else. And so sometimes we are doing things, but our mind is somewhere else. So God looks at the mind aspect of it. It's called bina man ke kaam karna, right? There are a lot of things we do where our mind is not there and our attention is somewhere else, but we are still doing it. So when we employ the same principle in puja, in our daily puja, it does not count for anything at all. It's simply a multiplication with zero. So which is called anasanga bhakti. There is a sasanga bhakti and there is an anasanga bhakti. And the biggest problem that we have as humans is most of the times we end up doing anasanga bhakti. We think we are sitting in the temple and give ourselves, our mind will tell, oh, all right, I've done my puja for that, I've completed my quota for the week. But truly where your mind was is what God looks for. And that is where there is a shortfall. Because if that was there, then we would have gotten a lot of credit out of it and possibly attachment would have happened automatically, right? When we get attached to the worldly things by repeated contemplation, thinking about it, but doesn't happen with God so easily, even though we go to temples or listen to this knowledge or think about God, right? That's because we have done anasang bhakti, mostly centered around our body and senses, not so much with our mind. And that paradigm has to shift. It's your mind that matters, not what you are doing through your body and through your senses. And if you're doing it with both mind and senses, even better. Nothing like it. Right? There's a story of Leo Tolstoy. He was walking on the stairs. He was climbing up the stairs and somebody else comes from the other side. Stairs are pretty wide, but he just moves a little bit, does not give him enough space. So he asked him why. He said, I was walking with, that character. He was writing a book and he was living that in his mind. So he said that character was walking alongside me. So I did not have space. So basically in his mind, he's imbibed that in his mind. So to an extent that he's living with that character and he could not do that. So his mind is completely occupied there. That is the absorption one can achieve as a human when we sufficiently contemplate upon something. Right, and we can easily extend that kind of a thing to God as well. From Tolstoy's stories, there's a live anecdote from that. Yes, Keshavji, you wanted to add something?
Radhe Radhe Keshav.
Yes,
Hi,
Keshavji.
Radhe Radhe. Yeah, 3 kinds of work.
Radhe Radhe.
I'm sitting here. I'm involved in listening to your Gita class, Nitinji. Suddenly a mosquito comes, attacks here. My hand goes there. my mind is in your Gita class. But it happened because my mind is not there to kill the mosquito. So, am I a killer of mosquito? No. Then I heard this story is created by one Swamiji. Then he did his hand second time to clean so that whatever, you know what I mean. So, I mean, these are interesting things. And the other thing I'm very happy I joined you in the beginning. You know what? Sanjay was, like Arjun was addressed Dhananjay because he fought one war and he accumulated lots and lots of wealth. Now the message here for as Dhananjay is, in the world, those people who are running after wealth, accumulating it, will not reach the goal of human life. Sorry, this is my interpretation. But you did a good job. Thanks, Nitin. I love you. God bless you.
The feeling is mutual, Keshavji. Thank you. Yes, yeah. In this particular, yes, he won a war and he had accumulated a lot of wealth. Now he's accumulating knowledge as well, right? So knowledge is wealth. So there are a lot of analogies or inferences we can draw out of that. But thank you so much. Now let's move on. So these are the three kind of works. So I think the key message, I hope we all got it. It is important where your mind is. See, this is the correction we all have to make consciously, mindfully, repeatedly until it becomes a nature. I also struggle. You know, I've been sitting here in the camp and it's like, okay, oh my God, again, the mind wandered. There are tons of distractions that happen, right? But then at least the back of the mind knowledge is there. You know what? This is a limited time. Now you have time. Don't let it wander. Because this time world will anyway keep coming in your mind, this, that, unfinished work, something else. But when you understand the concept, the theory part of it, then you will work towards it. If you don't even know, you would not even have come to know. When I came across this concept for the first time, I said, oh my God, why didn't somebody tell it to me all the way when I was growing up? Because whenever I would sit, I would utilize it as an opportunity to do something about my antakaran or my mind. Nobody told me. They said, do it, okay. And you keep on doing it mechanically, mindlessly, right? All that's through senses and stuff like that. Okay, that's fine. It will bring in some kind of a discipline and some kind of a, somewhere at the back of your mind, it is important. But the true benefit, we are simply multiplying it by 0 and telling everybody that we are doing our, our 2-time puja and everything. And even yourself, you will never challenge it. And that is the biggest thing. Maharajji's biggest contribution, and Swamiji's, of course, taking that forward, is bringing mind into the fold. Nobody talks about it in so much of detail, right? If you don't bring mind into it, we are not doing anything at all. You are where your mind is. Nothing else matters, basically. And if you don't bring mind to your devotional practice, basically nothing matters. It's like if you do a devotional practice without absorption of your mind, it is like a body without life force, without soul. Nothing. It doesn't count for anything at all, right? So mansi bhakti or sasanga bhakti is what we need to do, not anasanga bhakti. You go to so many havans and pujas and this thing, and everybody is talking, gossiping, and then doing mantras and all. It does not count for anything at all. And that is the biggest contribution of Maharajji, getting that mind aspect into the fold as well. One of the questions that I always had when I initially got introduced to Krishna is like, I was told to chant. I did chant, and that has effect on you, right? But then I always used to ask, what do I think when I'm chanting? And nobody was able to answer that question for me. And which I always used to struggle with in my head. What do I think? And somebody will say, you don't think anything, just listen to it. Focus on word, which was a good thing, because in God has put in all his powers. So even if you think about God, that is fine. See, let's say you're doing Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, or whichever you're doing, and you're focusing on that alphabet, that word, that also will have an effect. But that will not enable you to build a personal rapport with God. So Maharajji explained it very nicely. He said, chanting is fine, but couple it with remembrance. Roop dhyan in front of you. Remembrance, when you do, then you will get the true benefit out of it. And when you do remembrance, you are also building a personal connect with God. If you simply focus on the alphabet will not, what kind of relationship will you build with it? It will have an effect. It will definitely have let's say you do Radha, Radha, it will definitely do its effect, transformative effect, because it's God's name at the end of the day, and it will do the trick. But how can you build a connect, right? So in order to build a connect, you bring that image and start simulating it. And I think I was listening to one of his lectures. He said that you do this practice for 4 or 5 days. And then once you do that, you'll become mala mal. That means your lottery has become. So if you perfect Roop Dhyan in this life, I think you've done yourself a huge favor. Where you close your eyes and your meditation starts. So that's a very good aspirational state to get into. Because mind is the real deal. Nothing else matters. Nothing else matters. Right? And the good thing about mind is nobody has access to it. Nobody's antaryami, other than your guru, of course. So you could be actively engaged in the world, doing all the things that they expect from you, but your mind could be there. Nobody will even come to know. You could be doing your spiritual practice in your mind while engaging with body and, things with everybody, and every people are also happy around you, and you're also getting the spiritual benefit of it. And that's the beauty of this practice, right? Because it's all in the mind and nobody has access to your mind. Nobody has the key to your mind. Yes, Rahul?
Yeah, Radhe Radhe Rahulji.
Radhe Radhe, since you brought Roop Dhyan into the mix, I just wanted to tell that for people who are attending the Shivir in online or in person, you are definitely getting into that Roop Dhyan of Sri Ram and all the other his divine past leelas, which Swamiji has been describing so nicely. Yeah, Radhe Radhe.
Thank you, Rahul. Yes. So he does make us go through Roop Dhyan on the lecture that he has gone through. So that's a very good practice. So that is the thing. So in this particular shloka, we will get into that. I'm just building, telling the ground for that. So if you go back to the shloka here, the word that God has used here is yoga sanyasta karmanam. Yoga sanyast, that state basically, union, okay, is what we are talking about. But that union is not going to be a unit step function. Yesterday you did not have that union with God, and today you have it. It doesn't work that way, right? It was like that. It would have been so simple. Like anything else, it takes practice, and that is where bringing God into the mix in your mind is a great stepping stone we can have. And that is where we have been lacking in multiple lifetimes, because of which, although there is benefit, but it is not to the extent that we could have extracted out of it if we had included our mind into it as well. Right? That is where you get the most benefit. Panchadashi says, Manev Manushyanam Karanam Bandha Moksham. This is the mind is the only thing we need to worry about or work on. And spirituality is all about cleansing our mind, moving your mind. It's all about mind only. Okay. That is why Swamiji has written books on mind management and everything, right? We talk about, he knows how to bring in. If we go directly to the spiritual, deeper spiritual principles, we may not be able to relate to it. So he's broken it down into, the fundamentals. Let's start with mind management and stuff like that. But end of the day, it's the mind that we need to tend to in order to progress spiritually. So I hope these 3 examples make sense, where our senses are involved, body is involved, mind is not. Where mind is involved, senses are not. And where both mind and senses are involved, even better. And that is why Kirtan, when we do chanting, when we sit in Bhajan Kriya, it is very, very important on the path of spirituality. Why? Because now you're giving your senses something. You're giving something to your ears. You're giving something to your mind by doing Roop Dhyan, and then you are giving something to your mouth to utter that word as well. So you are engaging your senses as well in God's name, right? So that can give you a manifold benefit, right? And thinking about it, of course, the Roop Dhyan aspect of it. So Kirtan is a very, very powerful tool on this path, not only for your Roop Dhyan, but also to recite God names. Both go in conjunction in that sense. So how does the math work here, right? This is one, this is another one. So you look at the external activities, world looks at the externals, what's going on? Oh my God, they're very religious, very puja parthi, very sanskari people. And these guys, they just, so the point is external doesn't count on the path of spirituality. You could be sitting in puja and thinking about, you see that what all different things one can think about. And then on the other hand, you could be working, but thinking about God. Okay, so this is what it works. But how would the math work? Now the math works like this. Okay, this is multiplication with 0 in both the cases. In one case, you are multiplying your spiritual gain with 0, nothing. You might have sat in puja or yajna for 5 hours, but you got 0 out of it. And on the other hand, here you are also multiplying it by 0, but what you are multiplying your binding actions. Now you may say, what does it mean? Okay, if I continue to multiply my binding actions with 0, yes, it counts. You might have exhausted or not contributed a fraction of a drop to your already karma, which is fine. God is not saying that you make 100%, you exhaust 100% of your karmas by performing non-binding actions. He's not saying that. All he's saying is you do 100% surrender, not 100% exhausting of your karma. 100% surrender you do, I will exhaust 100% for you, because otherwise it's not possible. So when you do that, what you are doing is you are increasing the proportion of your surrender. So you are increasing the proportion of your surrender. And when we keep on increasing the proportion of our surrender, then the arithmetic, right? Typically we incrementally, how do we work? It's like arithmetic progression. Now I'm getting into a little bit of maths and engineering. There is called an AP and there is a GP, right? Arithmetic progression, 1 + 1 + 1 + 1, you go like that. And then there is a geometric progression. You do, 2 square and square square. It goes very fast. So when you start doing non-binding karma, you make it a mindset, then the grace intervenes. And when grace intervenes, you can have an exponential growth after that, not in step by step. A lot of wonderful things can happen after that. So you can alter the math of your spiritual trajectory or the growth remarkably if you start practicing this aspect of practicing the presence of God or doing things for the pleasure of God and not for the sake of your own senses and body. Simple practice can take our spiritual journey, make it grow exponentially. So this is how the maths works. So this is basically the whole idea that your mind has to be attached to God, and then you are essentially multiplying everything by 0. Okay, which is essentially what we have spoken about in Karma Yoga as well. So your karma is no more karma. It is not binding karma anymore. Okay. And our internal attitude, like I said, the karma is basically dictated by 2 things. External activity we do, the internal attitude towards it. Now, the same activity could be a material, mundane activity, which is driven by self-interest, hatred, jealousy, greed. Even in the world, it is punishable by law, right? When they understand the motive behind a particular activity. Or the same activity could, if you kill somebody, one is for your, out of hatred, jealousy, vengeance, you could be put behind the bars. But if you kill somebody as a matter of duty because that person is a criminal or you're fighting a war, you may get him a medal. So depends on the activity context and the intention behind that particular activity as well. So similarly, when you do it for the pleasure of God, you will get a reward. If you don't do it, on the right hand side, what you see is where you get reward. Left hand side, what you see, you get punished. It may not be apparent, but the punishment is in form of more binding karma, which will make you repeat in this world, and you'll be subject to law of karma. Okay, with that, I'll take a quick pause now. Any questions? Please fill out the feedback tracker, and we have 50% discount going on for our Dallas retreat and the family camp. So do avail that opportunity. 50% means you can get a couple of more people now, or you can have the same amount of people and pay 50% less. So the way it depends on how you want to look at it, but it's a great offer. Do avail that. We have Sanskrit event coming up. You can encourage people who are in or around Dallas to participate. It's a great platform. Any other announcements, or please fill out the feedback in the meantime, or any questions, we can take it from maybe another 5-10 minutes before we wrap it up for today. Tomorrow is quiz day, by the way, so it's on schedule, right? Our quiz masters. Okay.
Yeah.
So it is on schedule, but I think it will be a shorter quiz given the lectures going on.
Yep.
And another announcement is regarding the New Year celebrations at the Radhakrishna temple. So there's going to be grand celebrations with bhajan and kirtan. What better way to start a new year than that? So do not miss out on that. And anyway, Bhakti Yoga, the Shivir people are also going to have grand Bhakti-filled New Year celebrations. Yeah, that was the added announcement, Nitinji.
Thank you. Any questions? Maybe 1 or 2 we can take if you have anybody related to this topic. I hope this mind aspect is clear. This is the key thing. This is the thing, I would say, one thing we have to understand based on Maharajji's philosophy, it is the mind aspect. Nobody talks about it. Nobody understands it. It's a mind aspect of it that we need to care about. You
There was
are
actually,
where.
There was a question from Tarunji, but you just answered it by explaining the exponential versus AP growth, right? So
And you
I
can
think
have it
that's
because
fine.
now you are tapping into God's energy, divine energy, Yoga Maya Shakti. When you start becoming Yoga Maya, power starts intervening, then it has no limit whatsoever. So we need to tap into it and gain eligibility for it. Okay, I see 2 hands. Let's take those questions and then we can wrap it up.
Shanti Chi, Radhe Radhe.
Yes, Shanti ji.
Radhe Radhe ji. Good morning. I have one doubt. When I'm doing my job, every time I'm thinking God and I'm enchanting the mantra also. But in the last couple of months, 2 months almost. So, but I have a little doubt, like whether I'm giving full attention to my job. So the productive will be. I have that
Not
doubt. Sometimes striking in my mind. Whether because before I used to give my full attention, like thinking about
understood.
contemplating on my job, on my profession every time. Now I'm completely changed and I'm giving full attention only to the visualization of God and chanting. So that is getting adopted for me. That is not, no, there is no problem. But sometimes
Understood.
I have a doubt whether I'm doing the right thing, whether I'm giving the full attention because job, whether so that I have that kind of doubt. And when you were speaking, the second point is there is 60,000 thoughts will provoke our mind, but yeah, while doing it, it might be yeah, I will not think that I have to think like this, but it is automatically getting eliminated. So whether I have to whether I have to consider whether that will become a karma, or if I'm not minding it, because thousands of thoughts will come. We cannot say everything is a positive thought. So
Understood.
sometimes
Okay.
unwanted
Right.
thoughts also provoking us.
Let me quickly take that. Yeah, limited time. First of all, thoughts. Yes, I said that it will generate thoughts. It's a factory, but if you don't energize it, then it is not counted as a karma. Simply neglect it. But you can neglect it only when you are not participating in everything that your mind throws at you. You are taking a witness consciousness. Okay, what is my mind saying? Do I need to lose that? Now, if mind is building an anxiety worry for you and you decide to sail it for 15, 20, 30 minutes, then you have made a choice. So that's something you can stem, and not everything counts as a karma. Every negative thought that comes to your mind, unless you energize it, it doesn't count. So, like, let's say you get some bitterness towards somebody, immediately you go, no, this is not good for me. If I do that, I'm degrading my karma, and you cut that there. Then God also understands, right? It's not like, okay, no, karma done. He also understands our mind is not as fertile as yet, right? As we keep on progressing spiritually, the quality of our mind starts improving, and those unholy, unwholesome thoughts, they start diminishing all by themselves. Okay. So first question, coming back, spirituality, it happens. It's a common thing with all the devotees when they start, getting more attracted towards this path or God, they lose motivation in their work. Okay, it's a very common problem. But let me tell you, so we cannot use spirituality as an excuse not to do well in what is expected out of us, right? If you think about a lot of great compositions, a lot of great architecture, it is inspired by God only. Tansen's guru, he was good at singing, but he would sing for God, and he outshone Tansen as well, right? So it's not that you are going to really excel, but your motivation behind doing that work changes. But that doesn't mean you'll not excel in what you are doing. And you use thinking about God as an excuse not to do well in your profession, right? Thinking about God means you are all building attachment to him. And when you have an attachment to somebody, you can still perform better. Like, for example, mother has an attachment to her kids, but does that stop her from doing her duty as a teacher or as a doctor? No. Attachment is there, but she can still perform as a doctor or as a teacher efficiently. So we need to think about that. It's not like, okay, I have some coding job to do, but now I need to do Roop Dhyan, so I cannot do that. You have to balance it out over a period of time that will settle down. So we still have to do what is needed with a proper consciousness that God will be pleased if we utilize our talent to the best of our abilities. And keep on deepening your faith and attachment to God. And then work will also start getting better. You'll start getting better at work as well. Initially, it might happen, but eventually you'll settle down. But we'll continue this conversation, maybe one from Shilpa ji, and then we have Ram Katha starting, already started, I believe. So one more question, and then we will, Himangini ji, you can put it in the feedback tracker. We'll take it tomorrow during the course of our discussion. But yes, Shilpa, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe, Nitinji sir, Radhe Radhe everyone. My question is kind of a tailgate to what was asked. So I'll make it very quick and I'll bring an example. And if you please can tell me if I'm on the right path or not. So if I'm doing the dishes, which I consider to be a very mindless activity, only using my hands, but then I'm listening to a kirtan or a lecture from Maharaji, or a God, kirtan of God's name, what is my karam?
So what is your karam? Basically, what needs to be done
What am
at
I
that?
actually doing? Yeah. Am I actually doing the dishes or am I actually thinking of God?
So you're doing both basically at that point, but then the job might require you to prepare a dish, right? At that moment.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm washing dish. Like something really mindless. You could make it any activity, but something that I know doesn't use my mind. So it's kind of opposite of what Shantiji was saying.
Right. So your mind is in God, right? At that point.
Yeah, and I know with my hands I'm doing something
So
very
you are
mundane.
where your mind is, and that is what you get credit for. You could be
Even
doing
if I'm
something.
not energizing that thought,
What are you
how am
energizing? What are you energizing?
well, isn't my energy going into doing something mundane with my hands?
So where your mind is, that is what God looks for, not what you are
Okay,
doing with
got
your
it.
hands or with your body.
Got
Okay,
it.
that's what it is actually.
Okay.
So God only looks at your mind. Okay, what are you doing with your mind? Because Hanumanji killed so many people.
Yes.
There were a lot of Brahmins in Lanka, but his mind was, I'm doing it as a Ram Kaj. So God did not note that activity, what he did with his hands, killing people. He noted
Right.
what was in his mind, and that's why the murder, from a murder account standpoint, it was counted as 0.
So one thing that I keep in mind is one of Maharaji's lectures says that we have 10 senses, 5 of our regular sensory senses and 5 like our legs or hands and stuff. And the 10 senses don't count in the world of God. The mind counts. And even if I think of a bad thought about somebody, then it's half as bad as actually carrying it out.
Exactly.
So am I understanding it correctly?
Perfect. You have understood it perfect. Body and senses do not count at all in this path. What you are doing from your mind is what counts.
Okay, great.
There were
Thank
two
you so
brothers.
much.
Suvrit, have you heard about that story?
No.
Suvrit's story is there, so I'll quickly tell you. I think it will put things in perspective. So there were two brothers who were going for a Bhagavatam part to a temple. In between, on the way, it starts raining heavily. So what happens when it rains heavily? They got a refuge in a brothel. Okay, and then Tavrit says, you know what? I'm not made up of mud. I'm going to brave the rain and go to the temple to hear Bhagavatam Katha. And Suvrit says, no, it's raining so much. I'll stay back at the brothel only. So this guy reaches the temple. Okay, now our Gyan Indriyas are there, right? Legs are carrying him to the temple. He's in temple.
Yeah.
His body is in temple. Now he's thinking, Tavrit is thinking, you know what? I'm sitting here listening to this Katha and this guy must be having a great time there, Suvrit. And Suvrit is thinking, you know what? Why did I not brave the rain like my brother did? And I would have been sitting in Bhagavatam. What am I doing here? So both are thinking the different things, although their bodies are at different places. After a while, they both start walking towards each other because Tavrit wants to be at the brothel and Suvrit wants to be at the Bhagavatam Katha. They both start walking. And there's a lightning and lightning falls on both of them and they die. And Yamaraj comes and he pokes Tavrit and says, okay, you'll go to hell, Suvrit, you'll go to heaven. They said, no, there might be a mistake. I was at the temple, he was at the brothel. He said, no, that was your physical thing.
Yeah.
Mentally, you were at the opposite places. This guy was at Bhagavatam because he was thinking about being at temple, and he was thinking about going to the brothel. So you are where your mind is, not what you're doing through your senses or through your Gyan Indriyas or your Karma Indriyas. I hope that answers the question.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Cool. Okay, Himangini ji, real quick, and then we'll wrap it up.
Radhe Radhe Bhaiya, I'm going to put this in the feedback tracker for you.
Sure.
It's an interesting one.
Yes, let's give it a good amount of time tomorrow. And now I think Ramkatha has started, so I'll be rushing there. So thank you again for your enthusiastic, engaging participants and turning up. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow and all the best for the quiz as well. And please fill out the feedback tracker if you're not already. Thank you, Radhe Radhe. Good night, good day. Bye.